Well, many of you watching these videos that we produce, as well as many videos on YouTube or watching commercials, the whole idea of early retirement is something that is really appealing to you and something that you'd like to be able to do. And there are a lot of great reasons for contemplating early retirement before the more standard date, let's say at age 60 or 65. Now, there could be some practical reasons other than leisure activities. It could be your health is not great. Maybe you're completely stressed at work and you want to decompress for a while. Maybe there's some employment opportunities you want to pursue, but maybe you don't want to do it full time, but these opportunities play to your strengths and your interest much better than the current work you do. You just don't enjoy your current job. And so there are all kinds of reasons to plan for and even trigger early retirement. And so before you make that decision, I think this video will give you some perspectives to think about before you trigger that early retirement decision. And I'm not here to tell you what to do, but I thought some of the research we found on the topic was really provoking. And I'm going to share with you some strategies that come out of the information I'm going to share with you from a few studies. So let's take a look at that right now. So the title for this video was Early Retirement or Retiring Early Could Be Bad for Your Health. And so where did I get that idea from? Now, one study that I came across was a study and research entitled Fatal Attraction, and it was subtitled Extended Unemployment Benefits, Labor Force Exits, and Mortality. And it was the MBER working paper, and the number was 25124. And the study authors made some pretty surprising findings. They suggest that some individuals, particularly men, might want to postpone retirement if possible. Studying a temporary change in unemployment insurance rules in Austria, which allowed workers to retire early, they found that men who retired before the normal retirement age experienced an increased risk of premature death. They did not find the same statistics on retirement for women. So that's why they titled it Fatal Attraction. In other words, early retirement didn't seem to be a good thing for men. Now, in another study by Shell Oil, looked at early retirement and found that people who retired at age 55 had almost twice the risk of death compared to people who retired at 60. And here are the details. The study examined the survival of 839 employees who retired at 55 and 1,929 employees who retired at 60, and then compared them to 900 employees who retired at 65. The link between early retirement and early death was greater for men. Men who retired at 55 had an 80% greater risk than women who retired at 55. In terms of overall risk of death, people who retired at 60 were no different from people who retired at 65. So again, a little bit thought-provoking. There might be some underlying reasons for this, but having almost twice the risk of death compared to people who retired at 60 is a little bit shocking. So Harvard's online medical journal posted this title back in March 17th, 2015. And the title was Retirement Stress. Taking it too easy can be bad for you, too. Men need to be challenged to be healthy in mind and body. So the title of that article is somewhat provoking, and the lead-in is, it says, it might seem like retirement is a time to take it easy, devote yourself to gardening, golfing, and napping. But don't take it too easy, say Harvard experts. An absence of challenges can have the same effect as too much stress, compromising your physical and mental health. For optimal health, well-being, you need to stay engaged with your own interests as well as with other people. So again, it's a little bit counterintuitive, right? All the images we hear, particularly about early retirement, is leisure, travel, golfing. That's what brings a satisfying retirement. And that's something that does motivate people to want to retire early. But it seems like there's some conflicting information out there that may mean that we need to sort of pause and just kind of reflect on what a truly meaningful retirement is all about. And so in the next few sections, we'll talk about what leads from these headlines to making sure that you have an incredible retirement and how to look at retirement a little bit differently. Now, like I said, these headlines are pretty provocative. They get our attention. And for most of us, those statistics are not going to apply. But for those of you who are thinking about retiring early and you're going to have a long life ahead of you, our thinking has to be much more nuanced. It's not about I'm retiring, I'm going to be controlling my time, a little more golfing, a little more leisure, and that's the extent of the thinking. You've got another third of your life to live. Your thinking will have to be very nuanced and very practical, and thinking over the long term, what ingredients do you need to be focusing in on to have an amazing retirement? So that's what we're going to talk about. Not so much, will you have a short life expectancy? It's more about there's a lesson embedded in that. And so how do you make sure that you're not one of those statistics? And we're going to talk about a few key things that you want to start working on. And there's lots of resources that you can tap into so that, again, you're not one of those statistics. So let's get into the discussion. Let's look at this paper from Aon, Dutch insurer. And they pointed out that we now spend more years in retirement than in childhood. Not working for a third of your life is expensive, and it is unrealistic for most people. It's no wonder many soon-to-be retirees are overwhelmed by the financial burden. Our current retirement expectations were designed for a different era when people didn't live as long, and if they were lucky, someone else paid them a pension. Now, hopefully you're in a fortunate position that financially you're not worrying about financing retirement, but there's no doubt that as people live longer, there'll be greater and greater pressure on their financial assets and on their retirement planning. So what are some steps we can take to make sure we balance off properly this idea about retirement and doing it early and the fact that we may live many more years than we think, and how do we balance those two off? So I'm going to talk about some specific resources and strategies to help us think about that clearly. Well, the first resource that I want to point you to is this book, The 100-Year Life, Living and Working in the Age of Longevity by Gratton and Scott. And it's a very practically laid out book to help you think about retirement and the retirement journey, particularly if you retire early. And as you go through that journey, if you go through each of these stages and reflect upon them and do the things that they talk about in this book, even if you don't live to 100, it's going to make your retirement much more vital, much more resilient, a much happier journey. So what I'd like to do is go through some of the key chapters that are talked about or points that are talked about in the book. So the first thing is multiple stages of life. So we view the retirement journey as very kind of linear with three stages: education, career, and then you're retired. But we're already seeing that it's a multi-stage journey, and it can cycle back and forth. Most of you probably know people who retired and then were retired for a few years and then unretired, or went back to school and changed careers. Now that's becoming more and more the norm. So where people will cycle through different stages of work, learning, and personal development across their whole life. And so that is a change that's going on already, and we need to think about that change potentially in our own lives. Now, continuous learning and skill adaptation, and this is something that happens to many people who retire, and it leads to poor outcomes. And that is they stop learning, they stop adapting. Their world starts getting smaller and smaller. So in a longer life, continuous education becomes essential. Skills acquired early in life may become obsolete. So ongoing lifelong learning is critical. And we know that often with people in our lives, older folks or parents who are completely overwhelmed with technology. They're doing their best to kind of figure it out, but it's very overwhelming. And so it's important that we maintain those cognitive skills and flexibility to always be learning new things that come up from a technology and adaptation standpoint. Now, flexibility in career paths is critical. The 100-year life requires more flexibility and more diverse career paths. People may take breaks, shift careers multiple times, and experiment with new fields. This requires a mindset shift away from a linear career progression toward adaptive, varied career experiences. And for many people, this is difficult. Many people are still kind of locked into, I worked in this career, or I worked with this employer. Granted, that's changing, but you need to think through career pathing in a different kind of way. Financial planning for longevity. That's what we do. What we do is we try to get our clients to face the reality that they could live longer than they think they will, and we need to have plans in place that make their long-term retirement planning resilient. And that resiliency is really important to build into the ongoing planning with these other skill sets so you have peace of mind around your retirement preparation. Building a supportive network, and I'll talk about that in a little more detail in a moment, but social connections, strong support networks, and more important as multi-stage life experiences take place for us. It's a really, really important thing. And we need to be adaptable because we'll lose relationships. We'll go into different relationship circles. And again, one of the biggest epidemics globally is the epidemic of loneliness. And so the book talks about ways that we can build supportive networks to fight against the loneliness epidemic. So overall, the book emphasizes the importance of resilience, adaptability, and a proactive approach to a longer life, encouraging readers to embrace the opportunities and challenges that longevity brings. So that's your first homework assignment. I'd encourage you to get the book and start working through the information to build real adaptability and resiliency, which will lead to better outcomes and more fulfillment, joy, and happiness through your retirement. Okay, let's wrap up these thoughts by just focusing on 4 key strategies. So you have a long life, and even if you retire early, you won't succumb to higher mortality rates. And again, I'm probably preaching to the converted here, but it's always great to be reminded about some of these key areas. So the first thing is, of course, relationships. Make sure you're always cultivating them, fostering them, building new ones. The reality of getting older is that we do see changes to our relationships. We lose relationships. Things change. And part of being resilient is always having a plan in place to foster new relationships, to enhance the ones that you have, and also have diversity in your relationships. Have age diversity, interest diversity, really important. Now, focus on purpose cultivation. And we have big P purpose and little p purpose. Big P is that amazing trip that you want to take. Maybe you want to start a brand new business in retirement. I mean, there's all kinds of really big, audacious ideas and things you'd like to accomplish. And they give you big P purpose. And then you have little p purpose. The little things that can happen every day. That cup of coffee that you sip and enjoy as you read a great book. Maybe it's the dinner party you're planning for the weekend with some really good friends. Maybe it's pulling together a wonderful Christmas celebration with family and friends, Christmas party you do annually. So there's all kinds of things that we can build daily, weekly, annually into our lives that gives a sense of purpose. And then balance stress and relaxation. Don't succumb to the idea that a great retirement is about travel and golf. It's much more than that. And we are, as living organisms, we need to oscillate between stress and relaxation. And if you have too much relaxation, not enough purpose, not enough, stress kind of worked into your life, that leads to bad outcomes. And then in the health area, I mean, these 3 key areas you want to focus in on. You know it, it's hard to do, so maybe build in some accountability partners in your relationships, but that's high quality diet, get out of those, ruts where you're eating processed foods, but whole foods. Strength training is critical. If you want to maintain independence of your retirement, you need to maintain your lean muscle mass. And then, interesting enough, VO2 max, your breathing and aerobic capacity is a marker for longevity. So make sure you've got aerobic exercise, if you can, built into your regular health protocols. Anyway, it's been fun putting together this video. Hope there's some ideas here that were thought-provoking for you. In the comments, don't hesitate to come up with ideas that you think are relevant to cultivating resilience in a long life. Anyway, wishing you all the best in your retirement and overall wealth planning journey. You take care. Bye-bye.